Good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to the Food for Thought Poetry Cafe. I am, as always, this is kind of my best meeting of the week, I have to say. I'm always just so happy to see everyone and to do this work together, even if just for an hour. And as always, there's a group of us who are kind of regulars now, who are coming back weekly, and then some people who come and go. So feel free to join however you can, whenever you can. I think we have one more Friday session in May, and then we'll take a break, and then I'm going to try doing Tuesday mornings in June. And really, I would love feedback from especially all the regulars. You know, you can either send us a chat or send us an email that if Fridays are really the best day, I will switch back because we've created such a wonderful community here of people. So I'm certainly willing to do what's going to work best for the people who are coming regularly. So thank you for that. For those of you who haven't joined before, just the quick Zoom etiquette that most of the time, keep yourself muted, especially if you have a lot of background noise in where you're sitting. But when you want to speak, feel free to just raise your hand and I'll call on people usually and then speak. So pretty much the way this works is that I'm going to read something, then we're going to go around and do very short introductions, and then you'll see how the hour unfolds with reading a little poetry, responding, writing poetry in very short rites. You don't need to think of yourself as a poet or writer. You just have to be willing to let words come through you in whatever way feels right in the moment. And then we kind of respond to each other with positive feedback. This is not a critical writing class. This is just a place to really explore feelings in a different kind of way. So this poem I've just been like saying to myself a lot lately is the short poem by Rumi, who's one of my people. This we have now is not imagination. This is not grief or joy, not a judging state or an elation or a sadness. Those come and go. This is the presence that doesn't. This we have now is not imagination. This is not grief or joy, not a judging state or an elation or a sadness. Those come and go. This is the presence that doesn't. So hopefully this poetry session is turning into one of those weekly present hours that doesn't go away. So what I do is start really imagining ourselves sitting in a circle together. People on either side of you on the screen, you could possibly reach out and touch. And we're just going to go around, say our name. Yeah, so reach out. Say our name, where you are physically in the world, and 1 to 3 words. Could be just an image, a color, just 1 word or 3 words that just describe how you're feeling this morning. Nothing long or involved. Oh my goodness. So yes, I'm so glad that Anita reminded me that this morning, actually exactly about half an hour ago, is the new moon in Gemini. And just to read you one thing that says, the new moon in Gemini encourages us to activate our engagement with the larger patterns that shape our destiny in a way that is much more empowering than the world dictates.
Wow.
She asks us to consider how we can show up for ourselves in the outer world from our inside place. So I think that's part of what we do here in poem making, is that allow our inside place to emerge for ourselves, and sometimes even allow it to emerge into the bigger world. So the poem I'm going to start with this morning, and what I ask people to do who haven't been here before, is just, you know, listen as I read something, listen for a line or a word in the poem that resonates for you. Maybe jot it down. Just kind of feel what resonates in other people's words and language for you. So this poem is by Denise Levertov, and it's called Beginners. And it's dedicated to the memory of Karen Silkwood and Elliot Gralla. And she starts with a quote. From too much love of living, hope and desire set free, even the weariest river winds somewhere to the sea. But we have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How could we tire of hope? So much is in bud. How can desire fail? We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy, only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower, not as oppressors. Surely our river cannot already be hastening into the sea of non-being. Surely it cannot drag in the silt all that is innocent. Not yet. Not yet. There is too much broken that must be mended. Too much hurt we have done to each other that cannot yet be forgiven. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud. Words or lines that jump out at you from Denise Levertov's words. And I'll actually unmute everyone. And if you have a lot of noise, you can just mute yourself.
There's that extraordinary line which she repeats, so much is in bud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Join our solitudes in the communion of struggle.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that feels so important to me right now.
Imagine us as siblings of beast and flower.
I like the message, we've only begun to love the earth.
There is too much broken that must be mended.
Yeah. We're all feeling that one.
I like, how could we tire of hope?
I like, so much is unfolding that must complete its gesture.
So just as a reminder, I send all these poems ahead of time too, so that you could have them in front of you, or read them as well. I usually send a few poems. We don't always get to all of them. So I'm going to suggest that the prompt from this poem either "We have only begun, ... or "Not yet."
Mm.
And as always, if there's a different word or line that really has jumped out at you as the line you want to take off from, use that. Otherwise, "We have only begun" or "Not yet." And we'll do a 3-minute write. Right. As always, 3 minutes might feel short, might feel long. With these short writing sessions, just always keep in mind that if some line comes up as you're writing that seems like a great line that you're going to continue to sit with and be with throughout the day, let that happen. And please don't judge anything that has come through you, because that's not what this is about. So is there someone who's willing to share what just came through them? I'm going to read a poem by Jane Kenyon, who is a poet that I tend to read fairly regularly. This is called "Briefly It Enters and Briefly Speaks." I am the blossom pressed in a book, found again after 200 years. I am the maker, the lover, and the keeper. When the young girl who starves sits down to a table, she will sit beside me. I am food on the prisoner's plate. I am water rushing to the wellhead, filling the pitcher until it spills. I am the patient gardener of the dry and weedy garden. I am the stone step, the latch, and the working hinge. I am the heart contracted by joy, the longest hair white before the rest. I am there in the basket of fruit presented to the widow. I am the musk rose opening unattended, the fern on the boggy summit. I am the one whose love overcomes you, already with you when you think to call my name.
Mm. Mm.
Is there a word or a line that resonates?
Patient gardener.
I like the image of
And
the
heart
basket of,
contracted.
Oh. Okay, Eric?
I like the image of the basket of fruit presented to the widow. The dry, weedy garden makes me think of my garden.
I just love how simple words can bring such a strong image. The stone step, the latch, the working hinge. It's like I picture myself walking up those steps into that dry and weedy garden. so let's just use the prompt, I am, ... Let it take you wherever you want. I am. The bell will ring in a few minutes. Is someone willing to start with I am? So for our last write, I'm going to suggest that you, whatever the image or word or words were that you started out this morning, just kind of riff on that word or that image. And we'll just do a couple of minutes. Whatever the image was that you were feeling earlier. Would someone who hasn't read yet like to read? So we started out with Denise Levertoff's poem Beginners, which when she says, how can we tire of hope? We've only begun. We've only begun to love the earth, to think about justice and mercy and how we might do this better. So I'm going to end with another hopeful poem of hers called The Fountain. Don't say there is no water to solace the dryness at our hearts. Don't say there is no water to solace the dryness at our hearts. I have seen the fountain springing out of the rock wall and you drinking there. And I too, before your eyes, found footholds and climbed to drink the cool water. The woman of that place, shading her eyes, frowned as she watched, but not because she grudged the water, only because she was waiting to see we drank our fill and were refreshed. Don't say there is no water. That fountain is there, among the scalloped green and gray stones. It is still there, and always there, with its quiet song and strange power to spring in us, up and out through the rock. May we all be able to find those hopeful springing places in ourselves and in the world around us as we live in this cloud of grief and as we live in the challenges that we all are going through every day. May we remember that place where hope springs eternal for each of us somewhere. And thank you all again for showing up for this magical time on a screen together. May you continue to let the feelings and the words flow through you in whatever ways you can. And as always, if some poem flows through that you want to share with the bigger world, please send it. And I look forward to seeing whoever can again next week. So have a wonderful weekend. Be gentle with yourselves. Be safe with yourselves. Blessings to everyone. Thank you.